Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Magical External Object session. First of all, safe harbor slide, you know about it. Please just remind you that you shouldn't base your purchase decision, that you should only base your purchase decision on what is currently available. My name is Agustina Garcia, and I work as principal developer on platform team at financialforce.com. Also, I'm developer certified. One of the Financialforce platform team tasks is to work with Salesforce pilots, provide our feedback to Salesforce, think about how our customer can get benefit of them, and be ready when they are delivered. Let me introduce Andy Fawcett, Financialforce CTO.
Thank you, Agustina. Welcome, everyone. It's so great to see such a packed audience here this morning. I really hope you're going to enjoy it. In fact, I'm pretty confident you will. We're super excited about external objects and really want to show you the use case that we've developed, and hope you enjoy it. Financialforce was founded 5 years ago, and we've got headquarters in San Francisco. Development is spread between the UK, Spain, Toronto, and various locations in the US, and we're also hoping to open an office in Sydney at some point later in the year. So we're expanding our employees to around 400 by the end of the year, and customers across 31 different countries. So quite a widespread business is Financialforce. Our growth, as you can see, is 80% year on year, and we're just very pleased to have got some further investment from a company called Advent of 50 million. So we're busily dispersing that about the business and making good use of that further investment. If anybody has got any questions about Financialforce, we've got a great stand, we're very proud of it in the expo. It's just literally straight in front of you as you come down through the escalators and want to talk about our products or any indeed technologies, then myself and a number of the R&D team are available throughout the event to chat.
Okay, this is the agenda. Today we will present a common user real life, also how to fix it, some technical description about it, talk more about external objects, some examples, what we can ask ourselves, finally some highlights, and at the end of the session we will have a few minutes in order to ask some questions and answers. Also, let you know that apart from Andy and myself, we have here, let's say, one of these external object featured technical architects. So if you have more technical question, we can ask him directly. Okay, the issue real life. Jorge Castro works for an engineering company, and their SCM system is integrated with Salesforce. In order to create a big piece during the design, they usually have to think about how other smaller pieces they have to buy, or if they have to create them. But not all the information, they want to put it into Salesforce. So maybe there are some unnecessary information and they want to leave it outside. So they usually work with Excel in order to do this design. And when everything is ready, the team send an email to Jorge, who is the person that will upload this information into Salesforce. He usually do it via Data Import Wizard, a platform tool that we already know it. But what happens when the company grows up and all the people send many emails a day to Jorge? Not only his job increased a lot, also he realized about some risks that it happens. So for example, when two persons of the same team send it to him the same file with the same information, and by a mistake, he uploaded the information twice in Salesforce. Jorge knows the way to fix that issue. They are so cool as soda, and they moved to Google Drive. So they have the Excel sheet, but he realized that it's still a long process in order to upload all the information into Salesforce. One day, Jorge decided to go to a Salesforce user group, and someone started talking about a new cool feature called external object. This feature will allow you to link an external repository like Google Drive with your Salesforce organization. The presentation follows with this slide. You can upload this information, your CSV file, into Salesforce using Data Import Wizard. With that, you have to create your custom object and fields, save the Excel data as CSV file, and launch the import wizard. In order to, all the steps related to the import wizard are choose the data, which means selecting which object you are going to store the information, the custom one that we have created. Select what are you going to do, create a new row or update an old one, select the CSV file. The next step would be to edit the mapping, which means select all the CSV file column names and match with the field names. If these names match, this step is automatically done for us. And finally, start the import. It's a quite straightforward tool, and the wizard allows you not to miss any step. So which are the benefits that external objects brings to us? First of all, we only need to create a connection between the external repository and your Salesforce organization. Secondly, synchronize metadata, which means create automatically the custom object and the fields with just a single click. After that, if you want to see the information, create your custom tab and refresh the list view. That's all. Quite impressive. Jorge asked another question. They have some other issues. Sometimes the information that they have in their Excel file and they upload into the org is not the final one. They have it there, but in order to do something else. So what happens when the process ends and they don't want to have this data in the org anymore because it counts against the story limitation? With external object, it's not a problem because it doesn't count against the story limitation because external objects are not stored in the org. They are a mirror, what you have outside in your external repository. This is a quick example about the demo. We will have in the screen, at the top we will have the org, and at the down we have the spreadsheet. So we can compare that everything is exactly the same. Let me move to my org and show you how it works. Okay, so first of all, I will refresh the list view so you can double check that I have the same information here and here. Secondly, we enter a new row for a new piece. This is the amount, and it is still in design. Back to the org, refresh, and we have the line here. Quick. What happened? After some days, they changed the status. They moved from InDesign to Approve. The same, refresh, and we have here.
Fire marshal will shut this down if you don't have a seat.
So, okay. Sorry. One of the import wizard tool is that in the case that we have to upload more information or modify something, we have to repeat all the steps related to the import wizard tool. However, here, with external object, we only need to refresh. But what as I said before, for Jorge, this is not the final information. He has to create something else. So we have our external object, we open the record, and there is a button, Create Payable Invoice, and there is a customization under it. This customization will create a Financial Force Payable Invoice document in order to buy the new piece, the motto. So as you can see, we can create our own code related to our to our external objects. In the meantime that its document is created, Jorge also wants to double check that actually the information is not stored at all. So he goes to storage and look for Google PCs. So you can see there is no other name in there, or just the tab 1, because the information is not stored here. If I back to my document, you have here, I have the document with everything, the motor, the amount. And finally, Jorge will be able to leave the information in the org because it doesn't count against the story limitation. However, he prefers to remove it in order not to make a mistake and create the same payable invoice twice. So the same, remove the line, refresh, and everything disappears. Jorge thinks about all the different approaches that they could follow. They are based on, or they are working with data loader. It's okay, they don't make mistakes, they can upload information quickly, and it's a platform tool. But it's still slow for him, and it's a lot of amount of job, the one that he has to do. Maybe we have some other use cases. Maybe, for example, we are a company that has some customization, and via an email service, for example, we send our CSV file to our system, to the organization, and via some customization, this information is uploaded automatically. But this means some lines of code, and at the end, the risk of, for example, hit some governance limits. So for Jorge, external object is the best solution. The advantages, you can see, is quick, it's a real-time refresh, and the disadvantages, we are in the first release, that's the main one. But imagine what can we do in the future when we have a second and a third release. Let me explain you a little bit more about external object. The marketing name is Lightning Connect, so you will find it with this name. But we can also know it's an external object or external data source. It will be available now for Winter 15, and it's enabled by default on developer orgs. Any other, it will be under request. As I said at the beginning, this external object, or this Lightning Connect, will allow you to link an external repository with your organization. So the platform, the platform make calls to the external data source, and via connection, send the information via the net in a real time, and the Salesforce organization get it in order to use it. Let me explain you a little bit more. We have our external repositories. We could have Google Spreadsheet, like we have seen in our example, but we can have others, like, for example, SharePoint and some others. And in the other side, we have Salesforce org. With Lightning Connect, we will link both. How? For each external repository, we can create one external data source. We will find an entry in the org. I will show you later. And for each external data source, we can create one or many external objects. In this external object is where we will show the information at the end. How we will do this connection? We can use OData, for example. SharePoint has its own connector OData, but for example, Google Drive doesn't have its own connector. So we can use, for example, OData for it, but Salesforce is also providing to us a new pilot. Is another feature. It's different from the Lightning Connect, but I would like to talk also about this. This is Apex Connector. It's still in pilot, but will allows you to create a connection with your own code, with Apex. We can do also, for example, if we do it via our data, we can do it with Heroku, and they will talk more about this.
Yes, thanks, Agustina. Yeah, so Agustina outlined the architecture on the previous slide, and Salesforce provided us with two really flexible options. First and foremost, if you're an Apex developer, in pilot at the moment, there is a set of Apex base classes interfaces from Salesforce that you can implement, and whatever your code in Apex can do to surface data within Salesforce, call out to an external web service or REST API, you can use that Apex code to surface code and data in external objects. It's a real nice native way of connecting out to external repositories. What this slide's talking about is another option. If you've got external data that's already being exposed through maybe a Java application or something hosted off Salesforce, you can also have Salesforce connect directly to that. And the way that you do that is you use a technology known as OData, and it's a pretty well-known technology. It's been around for a number of years. And there is a community project out there called OData for J, and it's a really easy library to use. It helps you get started implementing OData. So if you've got a Java application or any other application running off Salesforce, then you can use Heroku to host your connector in that environment. So two options there. If you're a native, Apex is probably the best route you want to take. But if you have some existing data sources that are perhaps available in Java, then the Heroku with the OData for J option is also available to you. So two options to choose from depending on where the data is.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, I will talk a little bit more about the Apex Connector. In order to create the connection with our Google Sheet with Apex Connector, we must implement two classes. First of all, this is not required, it's the way that I have done. Via Google API, I have created a class, and inside of it, I have an inner class where I will store all my information. This is the one that I will use in order to feed the connection. But what is required is to create one class that extends data source.connection. This class must override three methods. Sync, that will allow us to create automatically the new table where we will show the information. Secondly, we have the query that will allow us to retrieve the data that we will show in the list view. And finally, we have the search method that is for global searches. In the case that we have more than one external object, with this method, with the search, we will be able to retrieve all the information in just one call. After that, we need to create another class that extends the data source.provider. And the same as before, we need to override these three methods in order to get the authentication capabilities and create the connection. In my case, I'm calling Google Data Source Connection. But let me explain you a little bit more with an example. Many of us are developers, and we would like to know more about this. This is a hard code example. I'm not reading anything from outside, but it's enough in order to show you how external objects are created with Apex Connector, and it could give you an idea about this. This example is based on something that we have to do after the Dreamforce, enter our business expenses when we come back home. So for that, we have, first of all, our class expense connection that extends data source connection. And we have the first method, the sync. In this method, we create the table and the fields. As you can see, all these data source.columns are the fields. In order to create them, it's quite simple. Just add the API name, label, descriptions of some features like if it's sortable or filterable, the length, if it's decimal, set how many decimal it will have, and also the date type. The date type is enum, and Apex Connector that is in pilot only allows to include strings, number, boolean, date time, and URLs. After that, we have two other columns, two other fields. External ID, these are required, and external ID will help us to keep the uniqueness. After that, we have the display URL. This is a link that will allow us to see in XML format the information that we have in our external data source. Let me move to an org, and I will show you better. This is another org. In this case, it reads a Google Sheet. This time, I'm using Heroku for that. If you want to know more about this, I can show you after this session. And here, this record have the display URL. As you can see, we get the XML format, in XML format, the information of this row. After that, we can add some other fields, like I do. And finally, create a table. The same API name, label the names in singular and plural, description, add the columns. And this is the field. It will be in order to simulate or to have the same name field that we have in custom object, but here in external one. After that, we create our data source provider. The same as before, override these three methods. This time, I will call my expense connection. Once I have it, I will create a connection in the org. I will synchronize metadata, and I will have the external object. Let me move to my org in order to show you. If I go to Setup, if I scroll down, it's under Develop. We have here the external data source. I have already two data source created. I will open the expense one. As you can see, it's quite simple. Just enter the label and the name. And here in the tab is when we select the type of connector that we are going to use. By default, we can use, for example, OData, but in my case, I will use this one, the expenses provider that I have already created. I don't need to do anything else because this is a hardcore example. But if, for example, we decide to do it via Heroku app, like Andy explained to us, for example, in this server URL, we will include the link that this Heroku app returns to us. After that, we just need to click on Validate and Sync. And this button will call the sync method that we have overridden, and it will create the table for us, or in the case that we have already the table in our org, it will update it with new columns. For example, if we modify the date type of any of these fields, it will do for us. We can also create the external object manually in this way, and the look and feel of this, the way that we can create it is similar to the custom one. Once I have the external object created, I will create my travel expenses tab. And in order to see the information, I need to enter some code here in the query. This time I'm getting an empty list view because I'm passing an empty map. The list of maps, it will be all the information that I will show in the list view. This map, the key will be a string, it will be the name of the field, and the object will be the value of this field. In order to get some information, as I said, this is a hardcore example, I have a private method that will enter 3 rows with some data about my expenses. After that, in the query method, I just call it and pass these rows to the method. Now, I'm able to see the information in my list view. But what happens if I try to open one of them? We get this error. And this is because in the query method, we must define in which context we are, if we are in a list view or if we are trying to open one of the records. In order to do that, Apex Connector is smart and helps us to do it. With the query context argument, we are able to define or to see if we have a filter. In my case, if we have the filter if it's external ID. And in this way, here, we retrieve the value that is related to the external ID. It will be done automatically for us, and with this ID, I will look in my code which is the row that has this ID, this number, this external ID, 1, 2, 3, whatever, and get that information. If I'm not in the record, if I'm in the list view, just pass all the information. And after that, the table and the rows. Doing that, we are able to open one by one all the records. Okay. Maybe you are wondering, okay, I have the Apex connector, it's great, I can create with this code, but what happened with unit test? I have to cover them. How can I simulate the list view and the record and the detailed record? This is an example. You can do it in a different way, obviously, but here you can see how I have set as a value the number 1. So I'm saying that I have to filter by the field external ID, and the column value will be 1. In the case that I want to simulate that I'm in the list view, I will just remove all the filters, and that's all. Let me move to the external object now, how they look like. As you can see, it's similar to custom objects. The main difference is the API name. It ends with __x instead of C. And also we have the external data source link here. If I scroll down, we have the standard fields are the required that we talked about before, the display URL and the external ID. And then we have all the fields that we enter. This time, the name, in my case, I set the name field here. It's not in the standard fields because we can select the one that we prefer. So it will be under our custom fields and relationships. Will I be able to create more fields? Yes, you are. You can click on New and create manually more fields. You are able to select any other data type. For example, pick list, because the interface, the user interface that you will be able to see after clicking on New is the same one that custom object provides. But in the case that you select something that is not a string, number, date, boolean, those types that are available in Apex Connector, and this external object is created via Apex Connector, you will not be allowed to do it. If, for example, you have the connection via Heroku and you create manually, you will be able to create some other type of field. Then we can follow scrolling down this external object, and we are able to see the page layout. We are able to modify and get the look and feel that we prefer. So in my case, I want in this way instead of the standard UI that they offers. And finally, as I showed you before, we are able to create some custom buttons as well. In my case, I create a button called Classic View that is related to a Visual4 page. This, as you can see, the Visual4 page is a simple one. The only thing that I do is to retrieve all the data and show it. I don't do anything else. But just wanted to show you in the controller. This is the most important thing. I'm doing a query. The information is not stored in the org, but I'm still able to do a query.
That's very cool, right? Yeah, that's very cool.
Maybe you are wondering right now, why are you filtering by external ID field instead of ID? So you can see here I have commented. You are able to do something like this, controller.getRecord.id, and you will retrieve the ID in the same way that custom object does. However, in my org, I have Lightning Connect, this feature, and I also have Apex Connector, both the pilot. I have both. And when they are both together, one of them is still in pilot, the ID is not retrieved successfully all the time. So for demo purpose, I just prefer to focus on, well, filter by external ID with some hard code. As you can see now, if I have my record, I have my button, my classic view, and if I click on it, I'm able to see the information, and I can do something else. For example, if I click on Ready to Pay, I have a validation. If this record is already paid, I will show an error message, whatever that you want to do. Finally, we are also able to create field sets. We can create them and add all the fields that we want to show. And in this case, I will put this field set in a Visual4 page as well. And I have a controller for this Visual4 page. The most important thing here is that I'm doing, again, a query. This time it's a dynamic query. And I'm getting all the information via the subject type. So external object also allows you to retrieve the information via the get, describe, and so on. Secondly, we have the Visual4 page, simple as before. And this time, instead of navigate to the Visual4 page, I will include in the page layout. So external object also allows you to do that. This is the result, but let me move to my org. This time I will show you there. If I go to travel expenses, my tab, you have here. This is the external ID. I'm able to open, the record, but also I'm able to open with the name field that I define in my table. And as you can see, the information is exactly the same. You can see this is the standard UI that I modified with the page layout. And here you have the Visual4 page with the field set. If I open the object and I go to the field set and I edit it, I'm able, for example, to add the type. Click on Save. And if I back to my record, as I'm doing a query dynamically, the type is already there without any other modification. What I will ask myself, could it be included in a package? Yes, but this time it's under custom object drop-down list, so you have to look for it there. Also, could I be able to do SOLSL searches? Yes, in the same way that you are doing queries, you can do also searches. Any other feature? I love visual workflow. I think it's a really cool tool. And we are able to use external objects also there. What else? Mobile. Yes, we are able to see our external object in our mobile devices. The same in my org, I have Apex Connector and Lightning Connect. So there are some issues between all of them because one of them is still in pilot. But I have another org where I only have Lightning Connect, and I'm able to see my list view and get the information, see the information in my mobile device. Limitation, we are only able to have 100 external objects per org, and after that, with customization, normal limitation that we have, for example, with governor limits. Finally, what I will highlight as a developer, as you can see, it's really easy to create. We only need to read the information that we have outside, create the connection, synchronize metadata, and that's all. It's easy to use on customizations. Once we have the external object itself, we can use it that it was a custom object. And finally, something that our customer always asks us. I want something quick. I want to do this and get the information in my org. We are able to do it now because it's not a quick refresh. It's a real-time refresh. As an end user, I get the real-time refresh, so I get the information quick. Also, I'm able to use different repositories. Today, I'm based on Google Drive, but you can use some others. Finally, it doesn't count against the storage limitation. So if I want to leave my data there for future references, it's OK. It's fine. It's time for questions.
Wow. Gobsmacked? I know I was. It's absolutely awesome. Before we just take questions, I know we've got Alexei, one of the developers here. I actually want to just have a round of applause. It's a seriously cool architecture, this. So. Credit to you guys. They're seriously good. To deliver us all of the standard platform functionality on top of something like this, brilliant.
Great, thank you.
Questions?
Yeah, please.
Okay, please make your way to the,
Yes.
I know it's a bit of a packed room, but try and make your way to the mic in the middle there. Thank you.
Hi, my question is more around what all capabilities external objects have. So can we have like validation rules, workflow rules, reporting, dashboarding, lookups, master details, all of these on external objects?
Well, for example, with Apex Connector, master detail, for example, is not available right now, or lookups. However, if you use OData, Lightning Connect, that's all, you are able to use lookups. You can take a look at the documentation. It will be available now. You can get more information about that. Some other features, the one that I showed today, field set, these kind of things. Reports, for example, and that's what is not available right now in this version, but let's see in future.
Okay, and just to add on to this, do these external objects also show up in profiles, permission sets, record level roles, or sharing rules?
Sorry,
so when, let's say I have a lot of information from an Excel going into Salesforce, but I also want to highlight or hide specific fields from specific set of users, or not show all records to all users. So we have sharing rules, record level access, or field level access. Is that something that can be done with external objects?
Yes.
I think we'll leverage our Salesforce architect at this moment.
Yes.
Sharing rules, I think, is the question. I don't think we've got you mic'd up, but yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So there are actually two answers. One of them is at the level of sharing. We don't do sharing because the data is stored outside, and this is actually up to the remote system to handle ownership and access control. The remote system knows the identity of the user as it comes in, and it can serve or not the record depending on the access level. But per field level security is fully supported. So if you want to hide certain columns for certain users, that's completely fine.
Okay. Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Yes, I was going to ask for the SQL query, the performance, because you're making external API callout is going to be different. Is it treated as a web service callout from the perspective of Apex limits? Like, can you not perform DML before you do a query on external objects?
Can you answer that?
No, please.
Okay. Yes, it is. It is treated as a HTTP callout when you're using the Apex connector.
I know you showed how to use Google Sheets with that, but I'm interested in seeing if we can use external objects connecting to some back-end databases, specifically Oracle. We use OBI for our back-end for reporting, and I'm wondering if we can connect to the Oracle revenue tables that we have and kind of do some sort of a seamless integration with an Oracle back-end.
Okay, so currently it's only supporting OData. So if you've got an OData connector for Oracle, then it will connect. If it doesn't, then you will have to create a kind of bridge component like we showed with Heroku.
Okay, so no data is a...
OData is the API, yeah, that you need to support.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I have two questions. One on that one. What about SQL Server? Same thing, OData?
SQL Server does have an OData connector. I believe you have to build it out. It's not out of the box, but they do provide OData samples.
Okay, and then can data go the other way, or does it only go one way? I mean, if you're using it to kind of feed data into your system, but you want to make sure you know what you processed and everything.
Yeah, currently it's read-only, but it's on the roadmap, Safe Harbor, for write.
And can
Write
you have
access.
a trigger on it when it gets refreshed? So if it's real time, can you trigger on those?
Yep, it'll be real time, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. I can't wait for that moment.
Well, I need to go the other way too.
Yeah.
Hi there. We've built our own app in Salesforce 1. What about using like custom visual force pages and stuff like that? Will we be able to use these objects and push that data back to our UIs? Any challenges to worry about?
Sorry, I couldn't.
So the question was about could you use external objects from Visual Force pages, and
yes.
can they interact with other custom objects?
Yes, yes, sure. As I showed in the Visual Force page, the standard control was the external object itself. In the control, you can query, you can retrieve it, and do things. In my first demo, what I did was to use the external object, and with this information, I retrieve it, I read it, and use in order to create a financial force payable invoice document, which is a custom object. So yes, we are able to do it.
Okay, great, thanks.
I've got a question about relationships in terms of like lookups. How does that work with the external IDs for different data sources?
Didn't quite catch the back end of that question.
I just wanted to find out how like lookups would work, you know.
Lookups are partially supported at the moment. Do you want to perhaps answer
Yes.
that one? I'll take this last question and then...
Sure. So if we're talking about the OData connector, lookups are supported there, and we have different types of lookups. And I think the first example is external lookup, where you have an external ID stored somewhere in your custom object or a custom field in a standard object. You can make that a lookup, and then your objects will be linked. If you want to go the other way, you can also make a custom object a child of an internal object, but you would have to either store an internal ID outside or use an indirect lookup relationship. So, well, long story short, both ways of lookup are supported, and you will be able to, for example, place a related list on your account object with the external objects listed there, or go the other way around. If you want to link a case with a knowledge article, you could do that as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, going back to what Agustina said, the lookups are supported for the OData connector. For Apex, there are limitations because it's a pilot program. But if you have a strong requirement, you know, talk to us as a part of the pilot program. We're taking feedback for that.
Thank you. Any more questions? Another question here.
So, as you said, it's considered as the Apex callout, right? The web service callout. So, is there any limitation on the size of the file you are reading? I mean, if the Google Sheet is more than 3 MB, so will it fail?
So standard Salesforce governors are imposed for HTTP callouts. So I believe it's 3 megabyte in Apex right now. So those are standard limitations. I'm not quite sure about the limitations if you're using the OData connector. Are they larger if you're using the OData route?
The governor limits for the OData connector are separate from the Apex. As Andrew mentioned, when you build your connector in Apex, you run in the Apex context, and no classical governor limits apply. So you have the same heap limit and callout limit. And for example, if you use a random number generator for your data, none of them apply, right? So you could build anything. But for OData, there's a completely separate set of limitations, and there is a limit on the on a single round trip size. So basically, you can bring no more than 4 megabytes of data back from a single HTTP round trip. But then the OData query can span multiple continuation links, and the total size for that is limited at 8 megabytes. Those are more or less basically safety limits that we put in place. They're still subject to adjustment as we go along with this product. But Apex and OData are completely separate, so you wouldn't see the same limits with OData.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that pretty much brings this session to a close.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it.